Hello everyone, this is Nimish and today we're going to review the movie Ezra starring Prithviraj, Priya Anand and Tovino Thomas in a supporting character. This review is going to be divided into a spoiler-free version which I'll begin with, and then I'll give you guys a spoiler alert for those of you who have probably not yet watched it, although I'm sure everyone has watched it or heard about the movie, but definitely I'll give you a spoiler alert. So let's begin with the spoiler-free portion of this movie. This movie is as we all know, is a horror supernatural kind of movie with a Jewish backdrop, and it kind of basically takes the route of many horror movies, which is a couple moves into a house and starts feeling some kind of haunting, and then what happens next and what the ghost is, who the ghost is, what the history is, and how they kind of get rid of it or cannot get rid of it, and what happens is the rest of the story. I think on the technical front the movie was absolutely fantastic. The cinematographer and the director of photography has done absolutely a fantastic job, and you can see that in some of the shots, and these shots add to the kind of effect of the movie. Instead of using some kind of VFX or filters or anything, this movie kind of proves, like a few other horror movies that I have watched, that taking the perfect angles, especially in Ram Gopal Verma films, taking the perfect angles can just add to a horror and haunting element to the movie. In fact, speaking of Ram Gopal Verma, at the start of this movie there was a special thanks to Ram Gopal Verma along with Ajay Devgan and a couple of other people, and if you guys have any idea what that was all about, I would love to know, because I want to know how they contributed to this movie or why they have been thanked in the first place. It also makes me curious, wondering if they're already going to kind of remake it because Ezra is successful in Malayalam. Anyway, so yeah, I was saying the technical aspects are absolutely fantastic, and that's what gives this film an elevated feel and a feel that this movie is made with some kind of good effort and class. The sets, the kind of detailing that they've gone through, especially from the antiques and the thing that they've used, the debug box which we see in the trailer, all those things, there's a lot of effort put in terms of the complete detailing and getting the Jewish background right, getting the whole look of the movie, the costumes right. So it was absolutely fantastic on a technical front. Even the music was perfectly suited for the movie. This is not a movie where you want the music to be extraordinarily good or extraordinarily positive. You want it to match the movie, and it exactly matched the movie. And when it came to the kind of flashback, that particular song, I'm sorry I don't know the names of the song because it's very confusing for me to kind of understand which song is which name, but that particular song in the flashback sequence really matched what was going through in the movie, and I think that was well presented as well. The story front, as I said, is a very cliched story about a couple moving into a house and then the flashback, and in fact the base storyline is a lot like the Hindi movie 1920, which is one of my favorite movies. 1920 itself had a lot of scenes copied from movies like Exorcism of Emily Rose, and that's not what I'm referring to. I'm just referring to the basic storyline about a couple moving into a house, and the flashback and what the flashback was about and why the ghost is so angry. All those things are very similar, in fact, to 1920. The setting is different. In 1920 the setting was in 1920, the year 1920, with the British background and stuff like that, whereas here it's a Jewish background and we kind of take that route. Now, one character in this movie that I really liked, and I feel that without that character this movie was incomplete or would have been even below average or just absolutely irregular or something like that, ordinary, is the character of Marquez. He absolutely nailed his presence in the movie, and I think that without his presence this movie would have been hugely incomplete. Right from the time he came in on screen, there was this amazing introduction scene of Marquez, and that just shows that he's a very key character because they gave him a very interesting introduction, very mysterious kind of feel to him, and as the movie progressed he was a kind of important character in the movie. And I think that without him, without his character, without his look, without his performance, which was absolutely brilliant, this movie would have been incomplete. And I think that one thing that I take away from this movie is the character of Marquez. He was absolutely fantastic. Now, since we have already taken a segue to the performances, let's begin with the performances of Prithviraj. He was really good. For the most part of the movie, he has nothing much to do except either be scared, be confused, or be the typical kind of male kind of husband or boyfriend or whatever, and then he didn't really have much to do. But then towards the end he performs really well, and I'll get into the details of his performance in the spoiler part, but this is a spoiler free part of the review, so let's just stick to the basics. Priya Anand was good. She really didn't have much to do, but whatever she had to do, she was very convincing. Anytime she was confused, anytime she was scared, anytime she was trying to be weird, she was really convincing. Tovino Thomas has a very small role, but whenever he comes on screen, he is absolutely natural, and I really enjoyed watching him whenever he came on screen. His subtle expressions, he has very few dialogues, but he acts with his body language and his eyes, and I really liked his performance again in this movie. In fact, when I watched Guppy, because that was my first movie of Tovino Thomas that I watched completely, I thought that maybe his look is a little villainous and a little kind of bad boyish, and that's why he can play up that character. But in this movie, you can see that he's not really from any angle looking like a bad boy. He looks like a proper cop, a disciplined cop, and that's how it contrasts, and that's why he's such a great performer, and that's why he's kind of building up on his stardom and is coming with even a new movie called Yodha, which will also be huge. So he was also fantastic, and I wish his role was longer, more substantial, and not so cliched and so much of a supporting role that anyone else could have done it, and there was no need for his presence in the movie. But nevertheless, he did a great job. Now let's get into the spoilers. So for those of you who haven't watched the movie, this is your official spoiler alert because now I'm going to speak about anything and everything under the sun about Ezra. So definitely, if you have not watched the movie, you guys can just stop watching right here and then don't blame me for not giving you an alert. So definitely, now let's get into the spoiler part of the movie. I want to begin the spoilers with the performances. Now towards the end, that's what I was saying, that Prithvi Raj has a very normal role throughout the movie. Anyone can do that, but the most biggest USP of his acting was at that end scene, in the climax scene, where he's kind of holding her up and he's playing both Ezra, possessed by Ezra, and himself, which is Ranjan, and he's playing both those characters and he's shifting back and forth, and that was incredible. And that kind of shows how much energy, how much dedication he has in that particular scene, because it's very difficult to kind of go back and forth between two psychologies. And this is also the director's victory, because a lot of what we see on screen is a portrayal, is the editing, is the kind of vision. It's like a projection of what the director is trying to show and trying to prove. It's a storyteller's perspective, and so it's also a director's credit that he got out that scene from Ezra. He got out that scene from Prithvi Raj so perfectly that he basically played both Ezra and himself in one particular scene, and that was the crux of the whole movie. The whole movie built up to that performance, and he was really fantastic in that scene. So definitely, he is the main point of this movie. He is the main actor, and as we get to know about the twists and everything, it's all related to him. It all comes back to him, and so he was absolutely fantastic. About the twist itself, it's a pretty regular twist. I think that in a lot of movies over the years, we've seen twists which kind of circle around and come back to the main protagonist. So although it was not something that anyone could have guessed, it was not something bad, it was not something kind of so predictable or something like that. It was definitely unique. No one expected that. Everyone kind of was probably shocked when they saw that. Even I didn't expect that, but it wasn't very happy kind of, oh my god, what a unique twist. It's just like, oh, this is just another movie where it comes around back to the protagonist kind of a feel. And so that's where I thought that maybe they should have not taken that, or should have taken some other angle. It was okay, it was going really well when the ghost was attached to Priya Anand and her baby, and maybe they should have just gone on that path and given it some other kind of twist instead of circling back to Prithvi Raj. Now, one particular scene where I kind of had a doubt about this whole thing was when he's following Priya Anand, and in one scene he has his specs on, but then he suddenly comes behind her without the specs, and he has a very puzzling look on his face. And that was kind of a giveaway, because you could make out that what happened to him. It's like, what happened? He was just wearing his specs and he was not looking with that expression, and suddenly he started looking with that expression. So that was one scene where it was very evident that something has happened in that scene, but definitely I did not guess that he was the one and he is this and he is that and the ghost is circling around to him or any such thing. I didn't guess that. My only question is, why do these movies always come back to the protagonist and make it look like, oh, this is just another movie where it comes back to the protagonist in some way or the other? And so that's a little kind of thing that I felt that they should have not done, because I feel that it was really going well with the whole baby angle, and I was expecting the whole thing like how will they kind of do this, they can't abort the baby, will they deliver the baby and do something, or before delivery they will do something with Priya, and I was that whole thing was going on in my head, and so I thought that would have been more interesting. And maybe if there is some kind of history of linking pregnancy to kind of the Jewish culture, or what happens with the debug and the pregnancy and the Jewish culture and all of that, that would have probably been more informative and interesting, I feel, instead of just circling it around for the sake of a twist to Prithvi Raj. Now, another thing that I want to get into is the convenience of writing. Now, this is something that I wanted to speak about in the Uzum review, but I might not even review Uzum because I know the response that I get from you guys, and you guys are basically not interested in a review of Uzum because it's a mega disaster of a movie. But nevertheless, this is what I wanted to say in Uzum, and it applies to Ezra also. And there are two ways of looking at it. The first way, when it comes to convenient writing, is you put the characters in a situation and kind of make the situation very convenient for the whole story to pan out. For example, in Uzum and in Ezra, but let's just start with Uzum because it's a detailed review. In Uzum, both the characters, Prithviraj and Neeraj, I think, they have their particular skills. Neeraj is kind of a hacker, which helps the whole plot because he's hacking and doing everything. And on the other hand, Prithviraj is a demolisher, the building demolishing. So that whole thing kind of it's just like they've been put in a fairy tales land where something happens to them and they have all the skill sets to just use it, and kind of it just happens to them. Out of all the people in the world, you find a hacker and a demolisher, and that's just, I feel that there's nothing wrong with it because stories are set in a fairy tale world, so to speak. It's a fictional world, anything can be possible. But I think that it's better to have movies like Opam, Drishyam, wherein the character does not have any kind of background power, so to speak. He does not have any convenient situation. Situations are difficult. There's nothing helping him in his life, but he finds a way out of it. And he or she, the protagonist, finds a way, works around it in a smart way. And I prefer that kind of writing because it's more intelligent. It's very easy to just put someone in a situation like Uzum, wherein one is a demolisher, one is a hacker, and then the whole movie is about how they hack and demolish because they are hackers and demolishers, and everything happened to them, and it's just too convenient. It's just too convenient, it's just too satisfying, and it's just misguiding, I feel, because it's like, oh, because they were a hacker and a demolisher, they can do this. That doesn't surprise me, that doesn't please me at all. And just the similar thing happened with Ezra, wherein the whole nuclear thing angle was shown in the end, that that the ghost wants to demolish the land, and so that nuclear aspect would have helped him a lot, the ghost a lot, to kind of demolish it. And I felt at that point that angle was a little too overly convenient because, first of all, nuclear things are not very common. Nuclear transportation things are not very common. And even if it is, it happens to that person who is actually handling the nuclear things. So, completely on his ID card. And to that person, it happens. The whole thing happens. It's just too convenient, So I thought that angle also could have been written in a better way or completely excluded because it was too convenient. And I'm not a fan of convenient writing. As I said, I'd rather see some kind of different kind of writing in the second half and in the Ezra angle, because I didn't want the same kind of nuclear thing to come into picture. So as I was saying, I was very happy with the pregnant angle, the baby angle, the debug, the Jews and everything, and I was really looking forward to that escalating and elevating on that side rather than coming back to the whole convenient situation of a nice twist so that the audience gets shocked, which is not a great twist, but it's nice nevertheless for the audience, for the general audience, and then backing it up with a lot of convenience factors, saying, oh, the nuclear reactor, oh, the ghost will use the nuclear reactor. And I was like, no man, that's too convenient, that's not fun at all. So I was just, these are a couple of things that I thought that could have been more unique, could have not been so convenient. Everything was going fine, and so that's where I felt this movie could have been better. Now, the one thing that I actually didn't understand, and I'm not sure if I missed it because of the damn speakers or anything, but the actress Priya Anand saw a ghost girl a couple of times in the house, and I don't think they explained who the ghost girl was. So they just said that the ghost went through Priya, then transferred to Prithviraj, etc., etc. But they didn't really explain who that girl was. unless I missed it or I didn't understand something because of the fast running subtitles and the bad speakers on the left. But definitely that was something that I didn't understand, and so I'll be very happy to understand from you guys if they have explained who that girl was and why she was appearing in random places to scare Priya Anand. So I want to know what that was all about. And overall, this was definitely a good watch because, as I said, I love horror movies and I just love watching them. And it's not like I had a very high expectation, because many of you told me not to have an expectation. Many of you told me that, some people liked it, some people didn't. It's pretty average. Some people gave really positive reviews, whereas some people were just like whatever. And so I was not expecting anything. I just love horror, and I went in to watch a horror movie, and that's what I got. But I really hoped that this movie had done a little better in terms of writing, so that we didn't have to come to the same route. And for those of you who have not watched 1920, a lot of it is similar. And I think if you watch 1920, which is a really, really good movie for me as a horror movie. In fact, I watched it when I was very young, so I was absolutely scared and I couldn't sleep for 2 weeks. And I watched it like around 10 times. It's a really good movie. And I think a lot of it is very similar. The only difference is the Jew angle and a couple of other things, but definitely a lot of it is similar to 1920. So definitely check that out. It's one of my favorite movies. And Ezra is an average movie. I'm going with 3 stars because of the strong technicals and the strong performances. It's ideally a 2.5 star movie, but a half star extra because of the technicals, the performances, and the Jewish backdrop, which gave it a different feel. And for Marquez, I think he was fantastic. And if I ever watch this movie again, I will only watch it for him and his entry scene where he's completely, laughing, and then the angle is from the kind of the hole in that table, and then the fuse ball table, and then he's kind of just smiling and the ball falls, and it's outstanding. So as I said, the technicals are outstanding. They give a whole new dimension to the movie, and that's probably why they thanked Ram Gopal Verma, because of his crazy camera angles. But nevertheless, I'm going with 3 stars for Ezra. I hope you like this review. Like, comment, share, subscribe. Take care.